Hey guys, welcome to Sound Bites. This is Allison.
And I'm Ambrasia. We're happy that you are tuning in to the Sound Bites podcast. We are interns in the University of Central Arkansas's Masters of Science Dietetic internship. In short, we're spending 15 months learning a more in-depth approach to dietetics, and in the end, sitting for the RD exam and making our mark in the nutrition world. Buckle up because this is just the beginning.
Wow, episode 5. Welcome back, everyone. Today we are taking a break from food and talking about podcasts.
I bet you all never thought you'd be listening to a podcast about podcasts. There are so many benefits to listening to podcasts. It's free entertainment. You can find podcasts everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. You can listen to them all for free. I think it's good to play podcasts when you're cooking, cleaning, or for a long drive. And podcasts are a good way to learn something without feeling like you're learning. Now let's get into some that we recommend.
So I listen to a variety of podcasts depending on my mood. We have all heard laughter is the best medicine, and the podcast How Did This Get Made is all about bad films. A few comedians get together teasing movies that are just so bad, they're great. Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet is another podcast with siblings reading Yelp reviews, poking fun at first world problems. This next podcast does not really fit into any category, but it is such a learning experience. This podcast will kill you. Not really. That's literally just the title of the podcast. And no, it's not a true crime podcast. This podcast is actually all about diseases, including the history and how infectious they are. From the flu to Black Death, there are diseases I have never even heard of before. You might learn a new fact about a disease you thought you already knew. Ambrasia, do you know the story behind how the bacteria H. pylori was linked to peptic ulcers?
I think I have.
Well, these two scientists were trying to solve the cause of peptic ulcers, and one of them, by the name of Barry Marshall, decided to mix this bacteria called H. pylori in with broth and drink it just to prove his theory. He started developing some nasty symptoms that I will not go into detail about, but after a biopsy, H. pylori was finally discovered as a causative agent to peptic ulcers. Barry and his partner Robin Warren received a Nobel Peace Prize for this self-experiment.
Oh no, I most certainly have never heard of that. Wow, you learn something new every day.
By the way, I do not encourage trying this at home. What kind of podcast do you like, Ambrasia?
One thing I think it's important about a podcast is the host's voice. If the voice is annoying, I don't really want to listen to it. The first podcast I recommend is The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Ears Edition. Trevor delivers the facts, but is also funny, and his voice does not drive me crazy. Another one that I enjoy because I love learning about groceries and food, especially the food I buy. I love the Trader Joe's podcast. The hosts have great voices, and I'll learn so much about Trader Joe's products.
Well, now that you're talking about voices, I'm kind of self-conscious about my voice on our podcast. But anyways, I like having some motivation and inspiration in my life. So Daily Breath is a really good podcast. Plus the episodes are like no more than 10 minutes long. Becoming Something, the Embodied podcast, and Off the Bench are also encouraging and touch on all of life's topics.
I have 2 nutrition-related podcasts I recommend. The first is the Food Heaven podcast. This podcast is run by 2 best friends who are both dietitians. They talk about how to live healthier and more balanced lives. A podcast that is more wellness related is the Rich Roll podcast. I haven't listened to this podcast a ton, but the little that I have listened to made me feel so inspired. A more news related podcast I like is Up First, which is made by NPR. Up First episodes are quick and great if you don't have a lot of time to listen to a long 2-hour episode. They report on the 3 biggest stories of the day, and I like it because I get quick news and I'm updated with what's happening in the world.
Ooh, before we end, I just thought of another podcast. It's called Conspiracy Theories. And whether you believe in them or not, they are entertaining. The Podcast Network dives into the most controversial events. And it does include politics, like we could need more of that, right? But they also talk about paranormal activity, crime mysteries, and fun old superstitions. Now, I hope you have discovered at least one new podcast. Let us know in the comments if you try them out or have any other suggestions. There are so many awesome podcasts out there. With the weather finally getting nicer, we decided that our next episode should be all about foods that boost our mood.